Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Johns Hopkins School of Education Mind, Brain, and Teaching virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Presenting today, we have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, Tyreen Maddox, and also presenting, we have Dr. Marielle Hardiman and Dr. Ranji John Bull. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. And also, please take a second to see if your mic and video is off right now. Please have your mic on mute and video off at all times during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box and we will read and answer your questions. And at this time, I will now pass it on to my colleague, Tyree.
Thank you so much, Sion. Good afternoon. My name is Tyreen Maddox. I am the admissions coordinator for the Mind Brain Teaching Certification. I would like to share the agenda for today's presentation. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education and go over faculty introduction. Lastly, Sion will wrap it up with admissions requirements and leave the floor open for questions at the end. Just to start, just some quick facts about Johns Hopkins University School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at the Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We offer more than 30 graduate programs, which includes doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For student enrollment, we have approximately 2,437 students, 121 full-time faculty, and a strong network of 22,000 alumni at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Our presenters today, I'll start with Dr. Ranji John Bull. She's the Assistant Professor of Mind, Brain, and Teaching and Doctor of Education programs. She joined the faculty in 2014 after a postdoctoral fellowship. She has a PhD from the University of Virginia, and her research focus is teacher efficacy, cultural competence, social context of belief change, neuroeducation, professional development, and arts integration methods. Also, you'll be hearing from Dr. Marielle Hardiman. She's the professor and co-founder and director of Johns Hopkins Neuroeducation Initiative. She's faculty lead for the graduate certificate in Mind, Brain, and Teaching. She joined JHU faculty in 2006. Dr. Hardiman has research and publications focused on enhancing educational practices through techniques that foster innovation and creative problem solving. Dr. Hardiman has also presented nationally and internationally on topics related to the intersection of research in the learning sciences with effective teaching strategies, including meaningful integration of the arts. And I will go ahead and pass it over to faculty.
So, hi everyone, I'm Marielle Hardiman. Thank you for that nice introduction. I'm really thrilled to see so many of you here and interested in the Mind, Brain, and Teaching certificate. It is one of the first and longest certificates at the School of Ed that has been totally online. And we continued to increase interest in the certificate since it went online in 2010. We started in 2009 with face-to-face. And then because we had an international community of learners who were really interested in the program, we decided that it was best to take it online, and it's really just only grown since then. And I think it's going to grow a lot this year. Huge interest in this program this year. So why pursue? So who are the people? So you can see from the slide, there are people who want to advance themselves as practitioners. Many people are in some field of education and they know that learning more deeply about the learning sciences is going to help them become a practitioner in a way that they can help whether it's at a school level or at a level of a district or charter, to help others learn more about how we think and learn and what the science is telling us about learning. So just sort of moving through the circles here, many of our students have become leaders in their field, moving from positions in classrooms to positions in professional learning, for example. Many people are already or move into policy positions. So we find that many of our students come to us already in some kind of a policy role. For example, they may have a nonprofit program that promotes learning. Some are educational consultants, so they're not involved particularly in one organization, but they have their own, and they're interested in learning the content to really enhance what they do as consultants. And then a lot of people just have lifelong goals, of learning. And, some of them just say, I want to become a better teacher. I want to know more about how the children in front of me think and learn, and how I can use the best of science to make sure that I'm doing the best I can as a teacher. So let's look at the next slide. Yeah, so it's ideal for, pre-K to 16 educators. We have more and more people joining us from the higher education field, counselors, school leaders, again, higher education professionals, organizational leaders. And this is true when we talk about organizational leaders, this is true for leaders, not just in education, but in industry. More and more people are coming into our program who are doing corporate training or corporate development in their field, in their corporations. And some of them are quite large corporations and some of them are smaller, but they're finding that they can learn from educators in terms of how to best make sure that the people that they're training understand what they're learning and are able to apply it meaningfully. Parents, homeschool educators have become part of our program. And I think the fact that those who are in face-to-face education and online education are really benefiting from what they learn. In particular, now that we're so much after COVID into the online space, many people are learning some of the techniques that we use within our online space and are replicating that in their own context. Okay, next slide. So it's a 15 credit graduate certificate. It does not provide certification as in you would get teacher certification. So just want to make the distinction between a certificate and certification. This is a certificate. And in, a transcript will show that you have the courses and have graduated from a certificate in mind, brain, and teaching. We look at research from the learning sciences that can inform education. And, the courses incorporate a lot of different disciplines, from neuroscience to cognitive science and experimental psychology, all surrounding human learning and human development. So, again, moving on, I think I already talked about the second bullet. What we ask you to consider through every course is how the research you are reading translates to or informs educational practice and policy. So if you want to learn about the different proteins that are produced when through the brain, if you're looking for that kind of detail in neuroscience, that's not this program. This program doesn't teach you neuroscience. This program translates research from the different sciences to educational applications. So we hope that you come to us understanding that we will be providing for you lots of research for you to parse from all of the different sciences that are here in this slide. But our goal as educators are to have you be able to translate that. And we want to help you translate that to educational applications. It's offered fully online, and we'll be talking in a minute about the time frame. It can be done in 5 semesters, but we also offer Plan B, and you'll see that in a minute when Dr. John Bull talks. And that is here in the last slide, and we'll show you what that looks like in the slide. Okay, next slide. So again, our work is grounded in accessible instructional framework. And you start out learning about the brain targeted teaching model, which is an instructional framework that is taught at Johns Hopkins across 5 of our different programs, from our MAT and Teach for America and EDD, and this certificate, and a program called International Teaching and Global Learning. So this model is one that I'm very proud to say that so many things that happen in schools come from professors who do some research and then tell teachers they should do this. Not this model. This model really arose from people at the school level. Actually, myself and the 80-some teachers that I had in my school at the time when I was a school principal. And it came to the university. So it's sort of the opposite of what you often find. It started in practice and addressing the practical needs of educators who wanted to be able to know the research behind what they were doing. So the other thing is, it's not a canned curriculum. It can be used across any organizational context. And our hope is the immediate translation of learning to professional context. And then the next slide. Okay, so on the very left, connecting brain research to effective teaching, that was my 2003 book. It was really one of the first out that connected all of the content. There were people translating this research, but I'm really proud of that first book because it really took it to a different level in terms of bringing together all of the disparate topics that were coming out of the learning sciences and the science of learning into a cohesive model. And then that morphed into the next book, the research between 2004 and 2012, when that was published, became that much more robust. So it's the second book, the one with the blue cover, that is the textbook of the very first course. And that runs through the framework. Our first cohort said, everything that we're learning in this whole program, we connect back into that framework because we see somewhere that it does connect back. And so we took their advice, we listened to our students. And so there is, some connection back into this framework throughout the course. And then this last picture is just to let you know that it really derives from the real needs of teachers in practice. So that's me when I was a school principal out there with my lovely children. And you know what they say, I have been at Hopkins, as you see, from 2006, even before it was the School of Education. And yet, having been a principal for a long time, I still think I'm a school principal. So for those of you who are out there in schools, I'm one of you. All right, I think that's my part. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. John Bull.
Thank you, Dr. Hardiman. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our curriculum structure and what we have going on. So for the Mind, Brain, and Teaching program, we have a sequence of 5 courses in the graduate certificate. It begins with Explorations in Mind, Brain, and Teaching, which provides an overview of the learning sciences where you learn some information about brain structure and function, some misconceptions about learning in the brain, and instructional strategies that are informed by the learning sciences literature through the brain targeted teaching framework model. So we start with this ground level of overview and an instructional strategies framework. The brain targeted teaching framework allows us to see what is applicable to the classroom and what's not applicable to the classroom and any professional organization, which is a really helpful framework for looking at this very wide disparate body of research. So we use that in the first course, and we also, it's threaded throughout the other courses in the certificate. In the second course, Fundamentals of Cognitive Development, it's a focus on typical, neurotypical development. And then you move on to neurobiology of learning differences, where you the focus is on a spectrum of neurodiversity in teaching and the teaching and learning implications of atypical development and different aspects of neurodiversity. And then we move on to, typical and then atypical. And throughout that is threaded this neurodiversity perspective. And then the next course in the sequence is Cognitive Processes of Literacy and Numeracy. When Dr. Hardiman was developing this sequence of courses for our program, there was and is still a huge focus on literacy and mathematics. And so the cognitive processes that go with these are things that are not covered in most education programs or in general. So this is not just cognitive processes for K-12, but it can be applied throughout our spectrum of learning and development and education organizations. And then in the final course in special topics, we focus on emotions, memory, and attention. And we survey a number of different fields that are not explored in the earlier courses. We do this because we want you to see some of the other areas of the learning sciences that are applicable to teaching and learning professions and the K-16 context. There is not one learning sciences field. There are lots of different disciplines that look at and constitute the learning sciences. And some of them are very closely aligned with education and applicable. And some of them are like 5 hops away from the professional application of this literature and research, like what Dr. Hardiman was talking about with neuroscience research and proteins that are associated with a particular type of cognition. Like those are like 5 hops away from the sciences that talk about learning and cognition in practice. So that is what we hone our lane to. So those are our 5 courses. In this particular structure, in the option A, you would take the courses over the course of 2 academic years with that 1 summer in between, 1 course per semester. Next slide, I'll show you the plan B. So we can, next slide, please. In plan B, we developed this course sequence structure in response to our students' desire to do the certificate in a more condensed time frame. So you would take the 2 first courses in the fall, Explorations and Fundamentals of Cognitive Development, and then you would take Neurobio of learning differences and Cognitive Processes of Literacy and Numeracy in the spring, and then you would finish in the summer with special topics in brain science. This was not only because people wanted to do this in a shorter time frame, but also because if you're only taking the certificate, or you want to take your certificate first in Mind, Brain, and Teaching, taking 2 of these courses allows you to apply for financial aid. If you're only taking 1 course, it doesn't allow you to do that, and we wanted to be responsive to our students who wanted that option. All right, next slide. So we use an online curriculum delivery in the Blackboard platform. Right now, the whole university is in the process of selecting a new platform. I believe for you all who would be coming in with us this fall, you would stay on Blackboard and be in that space throughout your certificate. Don't hold me to that though, because things might change. You never know. The vast majority of our courses are asynchronous, so you can do your course content at any time. There are due dates for your assignments, and particular products that you will do, like discussions and, you know, your projects. But in general, there is not a face-to-face in-person live component because we have students around the world enrolling in the certificate, which is another wonderful thing about coming to Hopkins in this online space. In this particular graduate certificate, you get to interact with people doing amazing things all across the world that and across the United States that you would not get to do necessarily if we were in in-person, face-to-face or synchronous program. So I think that there's a lot of benefit to that, because that enriches your graduate experience, getting to interact with and you know, your peers in other fields in education, consuming this knowledge and applying it in different creative ways. So we also have video lectures, interactives, discussions, and projects, and there are some synchronous sessions that are optional. We almost always record them. When we remember, we remember to record them. So there are synchronous sessions for you to be able to connect with us. And of course, if you need to connect live with us or one of our instructors, we're available on email and phone calls and Zoom calls. All right, we'll take the next slide. The outcomes of the graduate of this graduate certificate or degree is that people come out with these two different main areas. You're research translators in the professional practice, and you're also neuroeducators. So we want you to be able to gain skills for digesting and parsing research literature. What's good research and what's like meh research that's out there, right? Just because it was published doesn't mean it's great. We want you to deeply root yourself in bodies of literature that are relevant to your professional practice and your research interests. So we have projects that are throughout the different courses that allow you to translate immediately some of this research into your professional practice and allow you to apply what you're learning into your profession, whether that's the classroom or organization or home. And we think of you as neuroeducators after you leave us, that you have gained some essential knowledge and this nexus between mind, brain, and teaching, and that we want you to have tools that are ready for implementation. And what we hear back from our students is that you all, after you come through the program with us, serve as point people within your organizations, schools, your contexts, that where you are serving as that bridge between research and practice. I'm so sorry. We'll go to the next slide. This is what our students have to say. I'm just going to pause and let you read this for 1 second. All right, and then we'll go to the next slide. One of the other things that's great about the Mind, Brain, and Teaching certificate and Hopkins in general, I graduated from the University of Virginia, and I loved my graduate experience over there. I was so delighted when I came to Hopkins to work here to find that you could take 2 different certificates and put it together to get this Master's of Science in Educational Studies and specialize in 2 different things, which is not something that's common in most universities. So one of my suggestions to you is that you consider looking at one of these other certificates. You could pair Mind, Brain, and Teaching with any of these other graduate certificates that we have in autism, gifted education, mathematics instructional leadership, the STEM instructional leadership certificate, leadership in tech integration, the school administration and supervision, or the certificate in urban education. These certificates are all led by our amazing colleagues that we get the privilege to work with, and they all pair really well with all of them. So consider the MS in Educational Studies. If you do that, you could take, you could spread out your graduate certificate in the Mind, Brain, and Teaching over those 2 years along with the other courses. And so take one of ours and one of the other graduate certificates, or you could chunk them and do all of ours first and then the other second. So it's up to you. And I think I'm handing it back to my colleagues. Yep, I'm handing it back to
Just
Sian.
one thing first, I want to interject here is that you saw from that last slide, all of them are online except for urban education. So I know our students who are online with us and who are not local really appreciate the fact that they can take other certificates that are fully online. And the only one that is not online, just wanted to point out, is urban education. Maybe one day that will be, but you've got a lot of choices. But so let's proceed.
Thanks, Dr. Hardiman. All right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hardman and Dr. John Bull for the wonderful presentation. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. And keep in mind, there is an $80 application fee when you submit your application. The supporting materials that are required for this program are an updated resume that highlights any academic, professional, research, and leadership experiences. Your personal statement should not exceed more than 750 words. Please visit our website for additional information on your personal statement. And moving on, you should submit 2 letters of recommendation, a scholarly writing. And this is typically a paper that was written for a prior coursework. And if you do not have an appropriate sample of scholarly writing to submit, as an alternative, you may instead write a brief essay. So please visit our website for additional information on the alternative writing sample. And lastly, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. Again, this is from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process. If you're an international student, you must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score. And if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. Here on this slide, you will see a breakdown of the tuition for the next academic school year. We anticipate the base tuition for the next academic school year will be $926 per credit. The estimated tuition is $15,065 for 15 credit hours. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. You'll find contact information for the Office of Financial Aid and details of any loans and scholarships that are available. Thank you for attending the Mind Brain Teaching program presentation. At this time, we would like to open up the floor for questions.
Greetings, everyone. My question is, if you are from an international country, but English is your first language, do you still have to do the first bullet that was just shown about the, I believe, TOEFL exam?
Sian, I believe this is your.
Yes, it is for admissions.
Okay.
And can you speak up? If you can share your question one more time, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So my question was, if you are from an international country, but English is your first language, do you still have to, show the TOEFL information that was just posted?
And Tyrene, do you want to jump on this one?
So if English is your first language and you are applying, as far as the TOEFL, that is a requirement for anyone who is not a US citizen. There is an option in the application to check the box for a waiver for the TOEFL. And in that instance, you can just explain that, while you are international, that English is your first language. And it would really be up to the faculty to determine whether or not they would approve that.
But typically, if you're from an international country, we require the TOEFL.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There was one question in the chat about the difference between the certificate and the EDD program. So I'd like to just start the answer and then turn it over to Dr. Jumble for more detail. So essentially, the 5 courses in the certificate were the kernel of what we brought into the specialization in the mind, brain, and teaching doctoral specialization. So the content and the course descriptions and the course title are largely the same, but not exactly, because as you can imagine, in the doctoral program, the courses were contextualized for doctoral work, and in particular with the dissertation component added into all of the coursework. Dr. Jumble, would you like to say more?
Yeah, that's right. That's the mind brain teaching specialization courses are also a part of a 3-year program, 3.5-year program in the doctoral, in the doctorate, in the EDD. And the students who pursue the EDD also are taking the other core courses and electives within the doctoral program. You are also working on a practice-based dissertation while you go through the EDD. The content is similar, but it's basically on steroids. Like we ask much more of you, and you also the dissertation products are embedded into the program throughout the EDD, so that you're working on dissertation products and research type products throughout. The assignments are not as practice-based implementation type of products and assignments like we have in the certificate. So they're much more geared toward doing dissertation research and practice-based research.
As many of you have seen, if you have completed the certificate, we do not allow people who are in the certificate to then take the MBT specialization in the doctoral program. And the reason is that you've already learned the content. As Dr. Jumble said, you're going to learn it in a different way in the doctoral program. Those who have graduated from the MBT certificate, many have gone on to our EDD program, but they use the knowledge that they learned in the certificate into a different specialization in the EDD program. So at this time, we don't take you right from the certificate into the doctoral program in MBT.
Thank you for that. I forgot to add that part. Yeah. If you already have your master's degree and you're considering the EDD, then certainly you should, you should examine all your options if you're interested in that. However, taking the certificate and then going on to the doctoral program is a lovely way to complement your MBT knowledge with another specialization area, because we find that our MBT graduates apply all of their MBT knowledge into their dissertations and their doctoral journey. So there's another question about scholarship opportunities. Sion and Tyrene, can you guys?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So in terms of scholarship opportunities, we do have one with School of Education called the Endowed Scholarship. And that is a needs-based scholarship. Anyone is eligible to apply. The application usually opens up at the beginning of the year and closes around mid-March. There's more information about the scholarship on our website, but the amount ranges from about $500 to $2,000 per person for that academic year.
And then also in addition to that, you'll find the endowed scholarship application form on the financial aid webpage, and you would also have to fill out the FAFSA form as well.
There's another question here about whether or not, okay, first of all, the EDD program is also an asynchronous online program. And there are credits from the masters your masters that can be applied toward the EDD. It's in the 30s range, and this is where my admissions colleagues know the details better than I do. I think it's 36 credits get transferred from your master's to your doctoral program in the EDD. Is that correct? Sion or Tyler?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I think it's 36 credits. Yep. Other questions?
We did get a question. I just received it privately. I plan on working full time and going to school part time. How many hours should I allocate per week on coursework?
I'll start and I'll let Dr. Jumble then jump in. You know, most of us have done our master's and doctorate degrees while we were working full time. I certainly did. I mentioned I was a school principal and I did my doctoral work at Johns Hopkins while I did that. So all of our programs are meant for the working professional. You know, the only one that is not is our PhD program, which is a full-time program and you're not expected to work. But, you know, most people do. I have to say, though, that if you're going to do option B and take 2 courses at once, that's a pretty heavy load. So you should really think about whether or not you can handle 2 courses, because our certificate program really does require quite a bit of reading and writing. And, you know, so to double up the courses, you know, if you're doing that, that's fine. But if you're working full time and trying to do it, it might be a little hard. But yeah, I mean, everybody, you know, this is meant for the working professional. There's one other thing, though, too, that I want to add. While this is fully online and asynchronous, it is not self-paced. So many of you know of and maybe have participated in online programs that were completely self-paced. This is not. So you'll move through each session as a cohort. And, you know, if you want to do your work in session 4 and you're in session 1, session 4 won't be open to you. So we really do move you through the program as a cohort in a sequential way. So it is not self-paced. It's asynchronous. And as Dr. Jumble said, we do hold synchronous sessions that we find helpful to the students throughout the program. We try to do a few of them, 2 or 3. People, you know, are in different parts of the country. So, you know, the synchronous are a little bit more difficult, but yeah, so I just wanted to clear that up. It is not self-paced. It is asynchronous with some synchronous sessions.
I also received a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to add on to that in that the majority of our assignments are due on Monday nights. So a lot of the majority of our students are doing the major work, you know, on the weekend. So if you decide to take 2 courses, you'll just be dedicating a lot of your weekends to doing work for your school work, for your graduate work, that is. And that's pretty typical for our programs here at the School of Ed, online, that is. All right. Thanks. Back to you, Tyreen.
Okay. The question that I received is, can you speak a little bit about the diversity of students in the program? I am not a teacher. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I am interested in the Mind Brain Teaching Certificate. Is this something that would be good for me?
Well, I'll start and throw it over to Dr. Jumble. You know, just having admitted 21 students already. So we already have a cohort that's been accepted. And I have to say that they range from early career teachers all the way through people who have PhDs already and are looking to enhance their knowledge that the certificate provides. There's also people who are not in education at all. They're corporate trainers. There are people who are have their own ed tech companies. So what we have found is over the years, this program has moved from being largely people who are in the K-12 arena to a much larger community, and again, including higher ed and people in corporations or nonprofits. You know, as a parent, absolutely. I mean, you know, if you want to engage in this work, I think that you'd learn a lot as a parent on, you know, just how to take this knowledge and apply it into homeschooling or whatever your goal might be.
I agree 100%. I remember when I first started with Dr. Hardiman in 2012 as her postdoc, and I was just immersing myself in the first course as her TA. I remember listening because I had a 2-year-old at that time. I'm now the mother of 4 daughters, but I only had my first daughter at that point. And I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, I need to learn all of these things for to help my children and to help my parenting. I would love for Dr. Hardiman to write a book about that too. One of the number of books, but that, yes, absolutely. It's very helpful, especially as you're raising young kids. All of the different insights are applicable, in my opinion, to parenting and how you organize your home and your family and responding to the social and emotional needs of students and your children. My own daughters, I remember learning one particular thing in one of Dr. Hardiman's lectures way back when about not praising them for being smart, but, you know, praising them for how hard they were working and like what effort that was putting in and how that was going to pay off, and that it was resulting in like a lot of things. And so it changed some of the language that I was using as a parent with my daughter and now daughters. So I think it's absolutely applicable to parenting and how you'll get to interact with educators in general outside of your home. Are there other questions?
Thank you. We have one more question. If I'm doing the online certificate, do I have to be online at a specific time and date?
No, you do not. This is an asynchronous program. We do offer a couple of synchronous sessions with your class. Each class offers some so that you can, if you want to and are able to. If you're not able to, you're welcome to watch the recording at a later time. So you do not have to be online at a particular time. Like Dr. Hardiman said, it's not a self-paced course, so you do need to do your work and your learning experiences over the course of the sessions, which can be 1 week or 2 weeks long. And you do need to submit your assignments on time, other than the submissions time due dates. You physically don't need to be online at a particular time. Thank you for that question. It's a good one. Any others? Any other ruminations, thoughts, questions, ideas, dreams? Well, we are looking forward to seeing your applications. If you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're excited about the new cohort and the potential for you all to, oh, there looks like there is one more. Does the Mind, Brain, and Teaching specialization offer specialization in the PhD program? No, we do not offer that in the PhD program right now.
The PhD program, though, does offer a course or two in the science of learning, but it is not in any way contextualized to this body of research the way our program is.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Hardiman and Dr. John Bull, for your time and the wonderful presentation. It looks like there are no more questions. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.